Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder when I head out for a stroll and deliver an episode to you while I walk around. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good morning, listeners. It's Monday, April 13th, and it's gotten dreary, cold, and a little blustery here in suburban Chicago. I suspect you're going to pick up a little wind noise on the mic as I walk by. Going to see some crummy weather today, I think. Maybe even snow if it gets colder. Hopefully that won't be the case. I don't really want snow, but you never know. My mother in Minnesota, they got a whole bunch of snow yesterday, which is not fun. Anyway, so today while I'm walking around, I thought I would continue on the path I started a couple days ago. I talked about drafting games. I thought today maybe I'll talk about another kind of game I've been playing a lot lately, and we'll see where we go. So today I'm going to talk about Rando-writers. Now there is no good name for the whole category here, but some people call them, there's roll-and-writes, which are games with dice. There are flip-and-writes, which games with cards. I think those are the main two. There might be some sort of draw-and-writes, like you pull a chip out of a bag or something. But the idea is that you have an individual player board, or in the case of some games like Let's Make a Bus Route, there's a shared one, but you have a player board where you are drawing or writing something. It could be little shapes. Usually it's an arrangement of boxes, or you're making choices about how to use material. And the game randomizes your choices, and then you have to, based on the randomization you've got, make one of your choices. The granddaddy of these kinds of games, or the one most people would have experienced, would be Yahtzee, a game, of course, that many people have played, in which you're rolling dice to try to get poker hands, and the dice that you get give you an opportunity to fill in a particular poker hand on your player sheet, and then from that player hand you get to each time that you go, you're going to fill in a different player poker hand, and it will get smaller and smaller. Your choices get smaller and smaller as the game goes along. So what I thought I'd talk about today are some of the things I like or dislike about Rando-writers, and then a few of the ones that I've played a lot. So here we go. Thinking about both dice and cards, one of the things I like about Rando-writers is that often they accommodate a lot of players. There are two kinds of games like this. There are ones where everyone takes their own turn, and generally this is going to be ones that use dice, because you can't all use the dice at the same time. And when you take your turn, you use the dice, and then you pass the dice on to the next player, and they use the dice. In the older models of those games, there's nothing for you to do when it's not your turn, and that one isn't as fun. In the newer modes of the game, they have a way usually for other players to interact as well during the roll and write sequence. For example, in the game Quicks, everybody is allowed to take one of the pairings, and the person who rolled the dice may take two within specific rulings. Another mode is a game where all of the resources are available to everybody all at the same time. So these games that have the flip and write mode often accommodate a lot of players, because as long as everybody can see the cards that are being flipped, then everyone can fill out a board at the same time. So for example, a game like Welcome To can accommodate literally as many players as people have sheets. So that's one of the nice things about this genre of game, is that depending on the style, you can accommodate a lot of players. One of the other things I like about this game is often they are wide open with choices. Because you have, especially at the beginning of the game, you have this open tableau of places that you can draw things and write things. Usually at the beginning of a roll and write, you have a wide field of options, and you feel like every turn you take, you can do something, or almost something. As the game goes along, however, you generally become more and more restricted from the options that you have. So this might mean that as you go along, you find yourself having fewer and fewer choices until the end of the game. You are generally pretty limited, unless you've built yourself a lot of options. Different Rando-writers have handled this problem in different ways. Some of them will build in increasing mechanisms so that as the game goes along, you get more powerful, or you have more things you can do. Other ones have built in escalating conditions so that as the game goes along, you can push toward finishing. The really well-balanced ones will draw the game to an end right around the time that you're feeling too restricted by your choices. All of these are potential options and things that pop up during the games. One of the challenges to the roll and write genre is variety. Because generally you're working with a pad of identical cards or identical playing sheets. Because generally you're working with a pad of identical playing sheets, the games can often feel a little samey. So part of the idea of the game is to figure out how do you introduce variety into it. And there's a couple ways. One is to give the players lots of different scoring methods. If the game has a variety of different metrics that score, and then a number of ways for players to interact with those metrics, that creates variety through player decision, that you can choose to pursue a variety of different tactics or strategies depending on how the random element comes up. Another way is through variable elements, like it could be variable scoring conditions, which kind of fits in the first thing I said, or it could be variable setups. For instance, a game that might have multiple pads that would allow for different kinds of rules to come into play, or a game with different sets of randomizers, so that sometimes you use one randomizing set and another time you use another randomizing set. The other thing that roll and writes or Rando-writers are often faster games than other genres. I don't think I've played a Rando-writer that runs an hour yet. Maybe the very first time you play Welcome To, if you have somebody who's got analysis paralysis or has a lot of trouble just understanding the variety of things you can do, maybe that would go an hour. But for the most part, random writer games tend to go pretty short, an hour or less, often a half an hour or less. I think my wife and I easily play Welcome To in 15 to 25 minutes, depending on how quick we're feeling. And one of the downsides I want to mention is a Rando-writer you can run out of the game. This is one of the big differences in a game like one of the big differences from a game like any other board game, which generally is infinitely replayable, even if you get bored with it. Roll and write, you run out of the sheets. Now, every roll and write I've encountered has a thing where you can go online and print more sheets, and they also have a thing where you can order more score sheets. That said, I have not yet run out of score sheets for any of my roll and write games. I would say the closest is probably Quicks. We play that one the most of these. But the sheets are double-sided, so I think the pad came with 100 sheets, and they're double-sided, so we can play 200 plays of the game, or 200 individuals playing. I would say we've maybe done 40 is probably in the neighborhood of right. It feels like more than that, but generally I find that if you ballpark in your head the statistics about how many times you've played a game and then you go look, you're usually overestimating how many times you've played the game. All right, so let's talk about a few Rando-writers, and I'll let you know what I think of them. I've already mentioned several, so I'm going to go over those again. Welcome To, by Benoit Turpin and Blue Cocker Games, is a flip and write. So there are sets of cards that you flip, and you're kind of illustrating a suburban neighborhood. It's an interesting game. You are meant to be filling in house numbers along these streets, and the big restriction is that you can't get the house numbers out of order. You're allowed to skip, so you can go 1, 2, 5, 6, but you can't go 1, 2, 5, 4. Obviously, this makes sense. You don't want house numbers getting out of order. But the challenge of the game then is most of the streets don't have enough room for every house. So you have to decide as the game goes along which numbers to use. And as you make your choices, you then lock yourself out of other choices. This is one of those games where it ends either when someone wins or when someone loses, which sounds obvious. But, other games will end after a certain amount of turns or that sort of thing. So the wins and loses bit, if you win, you do that by either filling in all the numbers on all the houses or by getting all 3 scoring conditions completed. I don't know that I've ever played with someone getting all the house numbers. It'd be interesting to try that. Maybe I'll push for that next time, just see if I can. I'll take advantage of all the BIS opportunities, although you lose a lot of points because of that. Anyway, so one way for it to end is to get all the houses filled in. The second way is there are 3 scoring cards that you can get, and you get them by meeting particular objectives. If you've achieved all 3 scoring cards, then that ends the game as well. And the first person to get the scoring card, or the round in which the first person achieves each scoring card, the people who achieve it that round get a bigger bonus than the people who get it later. So there's a bit of a race element. If you see somebody else going for one particular thing, you can either try to race them for it or change tactics and aim for one of the other ones first. It works pretty well. The third way that you can end the game of Welcome To is if you have 3 strikes. So each round, there are 3 options for a house number you can take and an improvement you can make in the neighborhood. And you have to take one of the pairs of house number and improvement. And if in any round you can't take any of the 3, then you get a strike. And after 3 strikes, the game is over. So that's Welcome To. Really fun. They've made several alternate layouts for it, and I've bought all of them as far as I know, which means that we have like 300 game sheets for that game. So we're set for a long time. I have laminated one set of each game sheet. So in case we ever get to the point where we run the game out completely, we can use laminated versions instead. That's Welcome To. The other one we play all the time, which I've mentioned, is Quicks. Quicks caps out at 4 players because of the player turn problem I mentioned, where when it's your turn, you roll the dice, and you get to use 2 of the pairings that you make with these different dice. And the other players can use 1 of them, and it's a specific one. So there's really, when it's not your turn, the choice is, do I use it or not which pairing do I use. Whereas when it is your choice, the question is, which pairing do I use, and do I use both? You also have the challenge when it's your turn that if you don't use at least one of the pairings, then you take a strike, and after 4 strikes, the game is over. The other way the game can end is in Quicks, you're filling out these lines of colors, and if you get a certain combination of them, you lock a color. Once 2 colors have been locked, the game is over. It's pretty good. I really like it as a light filler type game. It's easy to play. It's very small. We took it with us to Iceland and played several times there, and that was really fun. So Quicks by Stefan Bendorf, published by GameRight. There's a Quicks Deluxe that was published. I don't know what's deluxe about it. I imagine when we run out of score sheets, I will pick up the new one. So the next one I want to mention is Welcome to Dino World. It is by far the heaviest roll and write that I've played, and it comes with an eraser because it's difficult enough to make the right choices. That one's really fun. It's by David Turksey and Nick Shaw. Like I said, it's complex, so I haven't played it that much because my wife thought it was too complex, but my daughter enjoyed it, so we may play it a bit more here. There is an advanced mode and a regular mode, and I haven't even tried the regular mode. Or I haven't even tried the advanced mode. We've just tried the regular mode, in which you're building dinosaur parks and building fences and powering them and trying to score like these 4 different scoring conditions. One of the things I like about Welcome to Dino World is it comes with a bunch of different scoring cards, so the variety in what you're trying to do and how you do it is really high. Also, just because there's so many things going on, the game has a higher level of replayability than is often the case for these sorts of games. Like I said, I haven't even tried the advanced mode yet, in which the dinosaurs break out and cause trouble. Back to the simpler side, a flip and write that you really could play with as many people as had sheets is Kokoro Avenue of the Kodama. Now this is a re-theme of an older game called Avenue by Christian Amundsen Ostby and Elif Svensson. Ostby's name I recognize from Escape Curse of the Temple, but this game isn't anything like that. This is a flip and write in which you're drawing these little lines and trying to score points by the arrangement of the lines that you draw. The version the Indie Boards and Cards published that I have is like a re-theme of an older game called Avenue, but it's set in the Tree Spirits, the Kodama Tree Spirits world with the Kwansha Moria art, and it's really good. It's a cute little one. Didn't go over great with the family, but I was happy to play it anyhow. 2 more I wanted to mention. One was kind of a disappointment. This is Imperial Settlers Roll and Write. We played it a couple times around my place, and while we found it enjoyable, I found it kind of samey. We played it 3 or 4 times and I was like, it seems to be the same game. It does come with a solo mode that has 100 different player mats. So that's actually pretty fun, and I think I will try that at some point. But the base game I did not find super compelling. Although it does have the innovation that as you play, your power amplifies. So as you go along, you build these buildings that give you resources every round, and you can use those to build bigger resources and so on to get points. That's Imperial Settlers Roller-write from Ignacy Trevicek and Portal Games. And I guess the last one I want to talk about here that I've played a lot is Cartographers. This is not one I own. Our game club has a copy, and I've played a number of those, and we've actually run tournaments with it. So I probably do need to pick it up at some point because it is pretty fun. But in Cartographers, you are drawing designs on a map. It's unclear. You're supposed to be different cartographers looking for parts of the kingdom that satisfy the queen's whims, and she rewards you for finding them. Now, it doesn't make a lot of sense because you get to decide how the land looks. And I heard someone talk about that you're lazy cartographers and you're actually sitting in a pub drawing the maps yourself rather than exploring. And that actually makes more sense, but that's not what the game says. And I'm always loath to add a new theme onto a game in order to make it make sense in my head. Well, who am I kidding? I would do that, but I don't think I should have to. That is the one downside in an otherwise really interesting game. And one of the things Cartographers does that I've not seen other games do is the idea that when these monsters come up, then you pass your board to another player and they write on it. They write a negative on your board. So the interaction of writing on other people's boards is really interesting, and I like that. That's Cartographers. I've mentioned several roll-and-writes here. I know there's a significant one called Railroad Inc. that I've never gotten to try. I know that one's supposed to be pretty great. I know there are a couple more that are supposed to be very good that I haven't tried. And I'd be interested to hear from people who have tried them if there are other ones that I should be seeking out. I do like this genre quite a bit, in part because it goes over pretty well with my wife, which means we get to play them a lot. And I would love to see what your thoughts are on roll-and-writes or rando-writers. Well, that's about it for me today. It's been a cold and blustery day and a little windy with a lot of background noise. So hopefully this episode turns out okay. Reach out on the Pick Up and Deliver Guild number 3269 and let me know what you've been playing and how you're holding up. To anybody who's listening out there who's been experiencing more than the usual trouble with COVID-19 and related issues, my thoughts are with you, and I hope that things go better as we move forward. All right. Thanks for joining me today. I hope your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.